My neighbor thought he could steal my water and get away with it. So I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I just flicked off one valve and watched his entire life collapse overnight. Power gone, tenants gone, income gone. And the best part? He still doesn't know I did it. If you've ever dealt with an entitled neighbor who thought your kindness was weakness, this one's for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for one of the most quietly savage revenge stories you'll hear today. Act 1. The House and the Problem. I'd been dreaming of owning my own place for years. And finally, I made it happen. A fixer-upper in the capital city, bought at a steal from family friends who'd been living abroad for years. It wasn't perfect. No gate, mid-renovation mess, and a padlock on the front door instead of a real lock. But it was mine. Or so I thought. On day one, I pulled into my new driveway and saw a random motorcycle parked in my garage. Weird, right? I calmly wheeled it out and left it by the road. Later that evening, an angry man came pounding on my new gate. I didn't even answer. Just watched from the window as he gave up after 15 minutes and rolled off with his bike. Already, something about this neighborhood was off. Still, I had 3 dogs, a 6-foot frame, and enough peace of mind to let it slide. For now. Act 2. A suspicious sound. A week later, I was taking a shower when I noticed the water pressure drop, which was odd, since my pump hadn't kicked in. But I could hear something. The distinct sound of a water pump whirring, next door. I paused, narrowed my eyes, and waited. The moment his pump stopped, I turned my taps back on. And just like that, pressure was back to normal. Something wasn't right. You see, my neighbor is an older man living on the ground floor of a 3-story building. He rents out the other 2 floors, and like most houses here, he relies on a pump to get water up to rooftop tanks. That part's normal. But what isn't normal is my water pressure magically syncing with his pump's activity. And it started making sense. The water bills for this house had been oddly high even when it was unoccupied, supposedly from leaks. But now? Now I realized the likely truth. This entitled geezer had been helping himself to my water for years. Act 3. Entitlement exposed. My friends, the previous owners, had warned me about him. He's bitter the house sold. He tried to talk us out of it, even claimed you wouldn't last here. Well, guess what? I moved in. I installed a gate. I fixed up the place. And suddenly, his little personal water tap was inconveniently locked up. Too bad. Now, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I checked my lines but couldn't find where he tapped in. Still, every time his pump ran, my pressure dropped. That was enough. I let it simmer. I thought about confronting him, maybe filing a report. But no, this wasn't about money. Water here costs next to nothing. A few bucks a month, even with me washing my car, dogs, and garden. This was about principle. This man thought he was entitled to my supply. He thought I'd never know. He thought there'd be no consequences. So I gave him some. Act 4. The tap. That broke the system. On a quiet Monday, I waited. I sat still in my room until I heard it. The click of his pump. Then I walked outside and turned off the main water valve to my house. Simple. No drama. No breaking and entering. No confrontation. But here's the thing. In our country, rooftop tanks have ball valves that detect water levels. When water's low, they signal the pump to turn on. When it's full, they shut it off. But if there's no water coming in, the signal keeps going. And the pump keeps running. That's really bad news, especially if your wiring is stuck in the 90s. Act 5. Midnight Mayhem. At 3 a.m., I woke up to voices, confused, frantic shouting. I stepped onto my balcony and listened. His tenants were awake, lights were off, and they were not happy. No water, no power. What the hell is going on? Turns out the old man's ancient wiring system fried. His pump had been drawing power non-stop, desperately trying to pull water that wasn't there. And in the process, it tripped fuses, overloaded circuits, knocked out both water and electricity for the entire house. Act 6. Justice. Delivered. In our country, water and electricity are considered essential services. If a landlord fails to provide them, not due to weather or force majeure, they're legally liable. And the tenants wasted no time. Both floors lodged formal complaints. One of them moved out immediately, the other followed 2 days later. The landlord, my thieving neighbor, was slapped with a $500 fine, which might not sound like much, but here, that's a heavy hit, especially for a retired mechanic with no income other than rent. On top of that, he had to return both security deposits, and worst of all, he couldn't legally rent the units again until he replaced the pump and rewired the entire house. Spoiler, he couldn't afford it. As of this week, he's packing up to go live with his daughter. Act 7. The final conversation. A few days later, he came to my gate. Didn't knock. Just stood there with that tight-lipped, half-proud, half-pitiful expression. I was wondering, did you shut off your water last week? He asked, casually. I smiled and said, oh yeah, there was a leak in my tank. Had to wait for the plumber. He paused, nodded once, and walked away. He knew. I knew. But he couldn't prove a thing. Sometimes revenge doesn't need noise or anger. Sometimes it's as quiet as turning off a tap and letting karma do the rest. He thought he could steal from me forever. Now he's the one without power, without tenants, and without a home. If that revenge hit you right in the soul, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us, what's the most satisfying karma you've ever witnessed? And remember, mess with the wrong person, and your whole life might just go down the drain.